from the campus of the University of Nebraska at Omaha. Consider This, a program of issues and information behind today's news.
Gregory Dietman owns Fat Boy Photography. Investigators say he took photos of individuals as young as 14 at his studio in Walton, Nebraska. A December search warrant produced several sexually explicit images of at least 2 juveniles, and there's evidence that he distributed them.
The patrol arrested the men during separate investigations. The NSB says that the investigation, along with cyber tips through the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, led them to Shane Smith, Colin Gierke, and Michael Taylor. They're all charged with possession of child pornography.
Hi everyone, I'm Kathy Wyatt. Welcome to this week's edition of Consider This. Our topic, child pornography. Here to tell us more about it are Captain Anna Colon with the Omaha Police Department and Angela Raber, Director of Communications with Project Harmony. Thank you both so much for being here and welcome.
Thank you.
Captain, I want to start with you. How does the law define child pornography?
So pornography would be defined as any visual depiction of any sexual act or body part, if it was a breast or any other private part of a body, that is either on a computer or on a photograph.
Okay, and who do you consider to be the offenders?
Offenders could be anyone. It could be your neighbor. It could be basically anyone. So anyone who actually has possession of these types of photos, if it's they have them on their phone, they have them on their computers, anyone that possesses any type of photo of a sexually explicit type showing body parts or activity, that will be considered an offender.
And we don't want to believe that this is happening in our cities, right? Talk about maybe statistics and even some examples right here in Omaha.
Statistic-wise, it does happen in Omaha. Unfortunately, it happens way too much. Even for the year 2000, in February alone, we've had probably 3 or 4 cases, and in January we had, I believe it was about 7. So we average anywhere from about 4 to 5 cases a month of child pornography.
Okay, and Angela, maybe an example, a story?
Yeah, so at Project Harmony we offer an online safety training course, and one of the officers had shared with me that a young girl of 14 had been interacting with a gentleman online. The gentleman now said that he was 16, and when the mom was monitoring her phone or had noticed these messages on her phone that they had agreed to meet up at 72nd and Dodge Street, she notified the police, and the police were there to arrest the gentleman, who was in fact in his 30s.
Okay, so predators and manipulation tactics. Captain, go into that for us a little bit in terms of who these people are.
So common tactics that predators will use, particularly something that parents need to be aware of, is that they will commonly use an application, if it's Facebook or WhatsApp or whatever application that they're utilizing. More than not, they're going to portray that they're younger than they actually are. They will befriend them on the app and say that they're, for the example, 16 or 14 years old, and they will like a lot of pictures that the victim has already posted. They'll give them all the proper words of, you look nice. They'll kind of groom them, if you will. They may send them a phone so that their parents may not see or have access to it, so that they can't see the communication that's going back and forth. They will start to, they may send photos of them, because they may, the victim on the receiving end may think that, well, they're just 14 years old, I'm 14 years old, so they're sending me a picture, a sexually explicit picture, so then the offender will send a picture to them first and then may start asking for pictures in return. And they'll say something like, well, all the other kids are doing it in school, because they'll think that they're all school-age kids. And so if the victim gets to the point where they don't want to send them anymore, what the offender will typically do is they will hold those pictures that they've already sent over their heads. If you don't send me more pictures, then I'm going to show everybody at school, and so that way they're afraid, and so they may continue to send photos.
What are some of the warning signs? What can we be looking for when it comes to this?
As a parent, first and foremost, you need to be aware of what your children are doing on any type of social media device, on any electronic device. So if your child all of a sudden becomes, if they say they're afraid, hopefully they would come to you and let you know that this has happened to them. But more times than not, they will withdraw because they are afraid. If my mom and dad find out, I'm going to get in trouble. What am I going to do? The embarrassment. You need to look for signs that they're hiding things from you on their phone. All parents should be able to access their children's media devices at any given moment, and they should. I would suggest that at bedtime, particularly when it's time when lights out, all social media or all phones or devices are not allowed or left in the kids' room. That way, you don't have to worry about the predator trying to contact them in the middle of the night type of deal. But I would just look for changes in the way in your child's activity, in the way that they're interacting with you.
Okay, and some parents who are watching might say, but Captain, my child doesn't interact with me anyway, right? I have a very difficult time getting them to talk about much of anything. I ask them, how was your day? And they just say, fine.
Right.
So is there anything outside of, especially for those families where communication isn't really something that is a strength or something that's comfortable, what would you do in those circumstances?
Sometimes you have to ask those tough questions. You just have to come forth and ask them, is anyone touching you, or is anyone asking you for any pictures or anything of that nature? Let me see your phone. And you just may have to be that forceful, that blunt, to go through their devices to make sure that there are no sexual explicit photos. Just having those photos on your phone, that in and of itself is a clear indication of a violation of pornography.
Okay.
And I'd like to add to that too. When you're having a conversation with your child about receiving maybe some inappropriate content or content that makes them feel uncomfortable, it's important that you communicate with your child that they are not the ones that are going to be in trouble. If they come to you, that they will not lose their phone, they will not lose their privileges, because oftentimes if children believe that they're the ones that are going to be punished or they're the ones that are going to lose their device, they are more reluctant to come forward. But if they know that you will support them and help them navigate through some of those uncomfortable situations, they're more likely to report it to you.
Okay, and Angela, this might be a good time for you to talk a little bit about Project Harmony, the organization you're here to represent today. Tell us what's important to know about Project Harmony.
So Project Harmony is a child advocacy center, and we see all child abuse and neglect cases in Douglas and Sarpy County, as well as 16 counties in southwest Iowa. And really, anytime you suspect a child may be in danger or suspect that there's abuse, we encourage everybody to make a report, because in the state of Nebraska, we're all mandatory reporters. And then at Project Harmony, we collaborate with many organizations and professionals such as law enforcement to provide that child and family with the services so that they can start to heal.
And we will talk about mandatory reporting in just a few minutes. I want to get back, Captain, to the predator, and probably one of the questions that people are asking themselves when they hear about what this really is and what it involves. What is the punishment, provided the person even gets caught? What is the punishment for a crime of this nature?
So if the offender is 19 years or older, that is considered a felony, and that means that they are looking at upwards of 5 years in prison and or $10,000 fine. And if they're 18 and younger, then it will be, the first time will be considered a misdemeanor, which means that they will be looking at upwards of a year in jail with a $1,000 fine. But the second and or subsequent offenses would be classified up to a felony. So again, we'll be looking at that 5 years and or $10,000.
And based on your experiences, fair? Do you think?
Well, I wish it were I wish it were more, because you're looking at an offender who has violated a child. They have taken the innocence away of a child. And is that fair to that child? No, by no means.
I ask because my next question for Angela is the short-term and the long-term impact on the kids, right? I mean, what do you see, Angela, in terms of, gosh, taking something like this and starting that whole process of healing for the kids. So short-term, long-term.
Well, depending upon the age of the child, some children don't know any different. This may be kind of their norm, if you will. So they don't know that there's maybe necessarily anything wrong. But as they get older and they start to understand more that this is not normal, this is not allowed behavior, it is making me feel uncomfortable. This is when we start to, have those conversations, making sure that we have open communication with our children so that they feel comfortable coming to us. But really, children are resilient, and if we're able to provide them with the services and mental health at a very early age, as soon as we find out, they are able to lead very happy, healthy lives. They are resilient, they can bounce back, but it's just a matter of making sure that we get them the appropriate help as soon as we're made aware of the situation.
Talk about, though, those children you're not made aware of, right? This goes on, and then it seems to the person on the outside looking in that it's all of a sudden. But that child starts to behave differently, starts to act differently, and people around them are going, what is going on, when really the incident may have happened many years previously. Then what do you do when you're really caught off guard in terms of that change?
This is what we consider trauma, and trauma can manifest in many different ways. It can come forward whether in behaviors or even in health. So maybe their stomach hurts, or they're having trouble sleeping at night, or maybe they're wetting the bed. These are opportunities then to really find out what is happening to that child, asking those hard questions that the captain had mentioned, and really making sure that we are providing the help and the support, and not looking at the child as what is wrong with you, but what has happened to you.
Which I think people would have a tendency to want to do if they're used to their child being a certain way, and then they wake up one day and their child isn't that way. The emotion gets ahead of the logic, and they don't really look at it maybe in a way that would be best for the child. So thank you for that reminder. Now let's go back to the online safety, ladies. So when it comes to, and children are online, what is kind of your introduction to being safe online? Angela, why don't you start us off a little bit? What are you telling parents and children in terms of being extra safe?
Well, really for parents, there's three things that we tell them to do. They need to learn, they need to set expectations and rules, and they need to monitor. So as much as it might pain you to learn how to play Fortnite or to learn how Snapchat works, it is really important that you do. And it can also create some bonding between you and your child, because you're taking interest in what they want, what they like, and what they like to do. So having those conversations, playing, devil's advocate, or a little dumb, like, oh, well, what does it mean when this happens, or what do you do in this instance? And really learning about that application, and then setting those expectations and rules in your house. At Project Harmony, we do have a technology contract that parents can use to start that conversation, and so that everybody in the household knows what is expected. And then monitor. So monitor can look different for every family, every situation, every child, and it doesn't mean that you have to hover right over them, but do spot checks of their devices. Don't do those spot checks like every Friday night at a certain time, because then they know that at this time I need to get rid of X, Y, and Z on my device. But do these random spot checks so that they know that they are going to be held accountable for whatever you agreed to on that technology contract.
So what do you tell parents and grandparents who look at you and say, that sounds great in theory, but I'm not really technologically driven? I'm not even really sure what I'm supposed to be doing with this particular device. What's your advice to parents and grandparents on that front?
So if learning all that you can about that certain app or application seems a little daunting or overwhelming, you can also Google certain things like risks involved with Snapchat or risks associated with Fortnite, and learning about what those risks are. I'd also caution you to make sure that it wasn't something that was posted in 2015 versus 2020, because as you know, each application and technology evolves over time. So something that may be an issue back in 2015 is different than what it is today. But you can certainly use the internet to look up what those risks and implications could be for those applications.
Yeah, I think it's important for people to know that they are not out there alone.
Absolutely.
That they can call a Project Harmony and Omaha Police Department and say, you know what, I'm really struggling with this. Because I think opening the door to that communication, that child might get defensive and think, now you're just, you're hovering.
Yeah.
So you talked a little bit about resources. What else is available, Angela, in terms of that monitoring piece? What would parents know to look for in terms of the red flags as they're going to those devices, as they're going to? Any thoughts on that just initially, or?
Well, anything like as a child or as a parent is doing a spot check of their device, if there's something that's of questionable nature, again, it's a conversation with your child, but then also contact Project Harmony or authorities. I mean, our family advocates would be willing to help talk through any situation with a parent if they have concerns and whether any next steps need to be taken.
Okay, Captain, I want to talk specifically about the child, him or herself. If there's any of them watching, or maybe somebody who's associated, if they are online and they do see something that seems inappropriate, maybe they don't even know what inappropriate is, or makes them feel uncomfortable, what should they do? And it seems obvious, but maybe what we tell them isn't what they're going to want to do. Who should they talk with?
Well, first, I want to go back and say that it's important that parents, you have those difficult conversations with your children and let them know exactly what is and is not appropriate. So you have to break it down so that they understand, because as Angela had mentioned, they may not know that someone asking for a nude photo of them is not normal. So it's important that parents, we educate our kids, and if someone is asking for photos or asking for anything, whatever those parameters are, if they go outside those parameters, then you need to let me, mom or dad, know about that. So to answer your question, if the child is uncomfortable or someone does approach them, then they need to first let their parents know. I would suggest that the child not respond back to the requests on the device, but let mom and dad know immediately. Mom and dad, what do? You contact the police immediately. Don't erase any of the content that's on the phone, because we will take that information, because we can use that to start an investigation on it. But first and foremost, it has to be reported to the police.
Okay, and you mentioned this earlier, Angela. We are all, in fact, mandatory reporters. I want you to drill down, ladies. What does that really mean, Captain?
So as a mandatory reporter, any public servant, so police, fire, teachers, anyone who works in that authoritative position, we are mandatory reporters. So if I think that someone who is a child is being abused, if they're being sexually abused, if they're being physically abused, if they're being emotionally abused, then I am mandated by the law that I have to contact authorities to let them know that I believe that this is going on. And I may only have the suspicion because the child may come in and they may have a mark on their arm or something to that nature, and I may not know how that got there. Or if I ask the child, how did you get that mark? And they're hesitant to tell me, or their story really doesn't make a lot of sense, then you can always contact police, and they'll come out and they will start an investigation from there. Anyone, just because if you're not a public servant or you're not in any of those roles, that doesn't mean that you should not say anything. Anytime that any parent or even a juvenile sees or knows of someone who's being, if it's mentally abused or physically, sexually abused, or pornography, anything of that nature, then they should tell the police, let the police know.
Even if they suspect and they're erring on the side of this may not be everything is to be considered.
That is correct, yes. I would rather err on the side of caution than not.
Okay, Angela, anything you want to add to that?
In the state of Nebraska, we are all mandatory reporters. So if it comes that you knew or you had a suspicion and you did not report, you could be held accountable for not making that report.
I'm going to ask it. What about those people who don't want to become involved because maybe they do know who the alleged predator is, and they're afraid, and they're thinking, boy, if I step into this, I could be stepping into something that I really don't want. What would you say to those people, Captain?
I would say to them, put all fear aside, because we are dealing with a child, and we do not want that child to become traumatized by whatever event that may or may not be taking place, because 9 times out of 10, if this child is being abused now, as they get older, they in turn will become an abuser, whatever that may look like. So we need to get in front of that cycle and stop that cycle right now so that we can provide the help through Project Harmony and through the other resources that we have, the other collaborations that we have, to help them so that we can put an end to this. So just because you don't want to get involved, you can always call in anonymously. We will take that as well. So you make that anonymous phone call and we will still follow up with it.
Okay,
Absolutely. And one person had said to me before, you will never regret making a call, but you could always regret not making that call. And I think that is just absolutely true, especially when you're talking about a child.
Absolutely. Angela, talk to us a little bit more. Project Harmony, just one of several organizations, and I know you guys are awesome collaborators. Who else is in not just the Omaha area, but statewide, because we have viewers across the state who may want to reach out and get some assistance? What's available out there?
So Project Harmony is one of 7 child advocacy centers in the state of Nebraska. So inevitably there's a child advocacy center that you can reach out to for support. But there's many different online resources that people can turn to, like commonsensemedia.org is a great organization in finding out more about certain apps, hidden dangers, risks associated, having those difficult conversations with your children. So whether it's the Child Advocacy Center, law enforcement, or the online resources, there's many opportunities.
The captain brought up something very interesting here. We're talking about children today, but if someone is or has been a victim and they do age and grow into maybe being an individual they didn't really expect to be, there are organizations available to help them as well. And I just want to make sure that our viewers understand they can reach out to the Omaha Police Department or Project Harmony to say, here's where we are now. You get the backstory and then are able to direct them accordingly, correct? So they're not just going to be lost out there trying to figure out what to do. The other big thing, obviously, like so much else, Angela's education. I know Project Harmony is very much into that. And you guys have some seminars coming up here down the line. I want to put that graphic up for our viewers. And as we're doing that, talk to us a little bit about what these seminars, what we can expect from those.
Absolutely. So our online safety trainings, we hold those quarterly. We have a part 1 and part 2, if you will. And the part 1 is offered in May and September of this year. And it's designed for parents, caregivers, and educators. And it really helps identify what certain apps are, how certain apps are used, how children are using them. We even talk about vault apps, which are an opportunity for children to hide certain files and photos on their phone that they may not want their parents to access. So how do you identify if your child's utilizing a vault app or has a vault app on your phone? We also walk through different types of phones, Androids versus iPhones, and those security features on there. So it's really empowering parents, caregivers, and educators to have those conversations, to get involved and really monitor and set expectations at home.
So I want to ask, with all the education that you offer, what is the most commonly asked question? That's my first one, and then I've got another one. But what do you hear most often from parents in terms of what they're wanting to know more about?
More often than not, parents want to know how to use these apps. I keep hearing about Snapchat. What is Snapchat? How are they using it? They want to know how these apps are being used. And unfortunately, as technology keeps evolving, we may present on a certain app today, and then tomorrow that app no longer exists, because children are pretty savvy, and once parents start learning, just as like Facebook, more adults are on Facebook now, so teens and youth are on Instagram now, or they're moving on to the next app that's cool. So it's staying up to date and in the know with what our kids are doing.
Well, I was going to ask you about that too, with technology changing so much. You'll get a parent who's thinking, I did it, I mastered this, I am all good now. Is there a place that they can go, if they're not really necessarily up to speed on technology, to know that it's changing?
Yeah.
To know that there's something that's new and being introduced. Can they just call a Project Harmony for something like that? Look, here's what I've learned about what don't I know that I need to know?
Well, certainly they can ask those questions and they can attend our trainings to find out more. But commonsensemedia.org is like one of the sites that I go to. It's my go-to site because they are doing the work for us. They are staying on top of what is new and upcoming with these apps and helping us all understand what the risks associated are.
Okay. Captain, we have just a couple minutes remaining as we've been having this conversation. Anything that is coming to mind that we make sure we get out to our viewers about our topic today, which is child pornography? Anything we haven't addressed? Anything you really just want to hammer home with the viewers?
I would suggest, again, once again, to parents and to educators, particularly because they're spending more and more time with our children sometimes than our parents are, but that you really watch the kids, what they're doing on social media. Parents know who they're in contact with, who they are going back and forth with on these apps. As Angela mentioned, know what these apps are and how to look for the hidden apps, and educate yourself and educate your children on what is and is not appropriate.
Yeah, and Angela, final thoughts from you on behalf of Project Harmony and all of those with whom you collaborate, serving as the voice of the children, for lack of a better term. What would you say?
Well, anytime anything feels uncomfortable, anytime you're put in a situation that doesn't feel right, please reach out. And I cannot stress enough, if a child does come to you with concerns, they are not the ones that are in trouble. They are not the ones that are being punished. You want to maintain that relationship and let them know that you are there to help and support them.
Thank you both so much. We have websites that we want to put up for our viewers in case they want to learn more about this topic. Of course, they can call either of you, but police.cityofomaha.org, of course, projectharmony.com, missingkids.org, and that website you brought up,
commonsensemedia.org.
Okay, thank you both so much for being here, sharing your time and your expertise. I wish you well moving forward. Best wishes with the children and serving as their advocates. Thank you for doing that.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks to our students for working so hard behind the scenes, and of course, our viewers for watching. As we close, a look at the Keystone Trail as seen through the lens of Danny Balanos, a sophomore here at UNL. We'll see you next week.
Consider This is an issues and information program produced by UNO Television. More information and program archives can be found at netnebraska.org/Consider This. If you'd like to share your comments about this program, call UNO Television at 402-554-2516 during regular business hours, or send an email to cwyatt@unomaha.edu.